Hollywood has always loved to tell fairy tales, stories of talent, of fame, of families born at the top of the world. But sometimes, tragedy does not come from failure. It comes from being born into too much light. Nick Reiner, the son of legendary director Rob Reiner, grew up surrounded by movie premieres, thunderous applause, and a last name revered across all of Hollywood. Yet on one December night, that name no longer appeared on a red carpet, but in a crime report. His parents were found dead inside their private home. And just hours later, Nick Reiner was arrested. What truly happened behind the closed doors of a distinguished family? How does a child born into art slip into darkness? This is not just a criminal case. This is a story of fame, trauma, and the truths Hollywood never wants to tell. Nick Reiner was born in 1993 into a family where the last name itself was already a legacy. His father, Rob Reiner, was the director behind films that shaped an entire generation. His grandfather, Carl Reiner, was a legend of American comedy. Hollywood was never foreign to the Reiner family. It was in their blood. But being born into fame does not guarantee a peaceful childhood. Nick grew up in a home where success was always present, yet emotional connection was not always complete. He would later admit that he did not feel truly close to his father during his early years. Rob Reiner was a loving parent, but also an artist constantly consumed by major projects, public responsibilities, and unrelenting pressure. In that emotional space, Nick developed an early and lasting feeling that he stood on the sidelines, not because of material lack, but because there was no place to set down the turmoil inside him. Those who knew him described Nick as a sensitive, fragile child, always trying to earn recognition, not from the public, but from his own family. Yet the overwhelming shadow of a famous father often made those efforts invisible. Hollywood gave Nick a name, but it never gave him a map for how to live with it. And that became the root of a life already carrying its first cracks. Nick Reiner did not enter life as a rebel. He entered it as someone trying to fill a void. From his teenage years, Nick began experimenting with substances. At first, it was curiosity, then escape, and very quickly it became the only way he knew to quiet the noise inside his head. While his peers were discovering their identities, Nick was slowly losing his. Hollywood was still there, his family was still there, but Nick was not. He moved in and out of rehabilitation centers, each return carrying a fragile hope that this would be the last time. But addiction does not operate on willpower. It feeds on loneliness, shame, and the feeling of belonging nowhere at all. In his early 20s, Nick admitted to people that he had entered rehab as many as 17 times. During certain periods, he was homeless, couch surfing, wandering, refusing further treatment. Not because he did not want to change, but because he no longer believed he deserved to be saved. During those years, the relationship between Nick and his family grew increasingly strained. His parents' concern slowly turned into helplessness. The help offered, though rooted in love, made Nick feel like a perpetual failure in need of fixing. Nick's first flame was not ambition. It was a cry for help. And when no one heard it, or when he himself no longer believed it would be heard, the road ahead was left with only darkness. After years of drifting between addiction and failure, Nick Reiner finally touched something that once felt impossibly distant: being seen. In 2015, Nick co-wrote the film Being Charlie, a story that did not hide behind fiction, but drew directly from his own life. The protagonist is a young man battling addiction, defiant, deeply wounded, and desperate to be understood. This was not imagination. This was Nick, placed on the screen. The film was directed by Rob Reiner. For the first time, father and son were no longer standing on opposite sides of an emotional divide, but side by side behind a script. The unspoken tensions within the family gave way to conversations told through images, dialogue, and silence. Rob Reiner later told The New Yorker that making the film with his son felt like undergoing an extended course of psychotherapy. Every scene was a confrontation. Every page of the script was a wound reopened, not to deepen the pain, but to understand one another. For Nick, it was the first time he felt his father was not only a great director, but a parent who was truly listening. He said that watching Rob work, observing the care he put into every detail, helped him recognize a love he had never before believed was meant for him. In that moment, everything seemed to fall into place. Addiction was named, trauma was acknowledged, and hope, however fragile, appeared. But Hollywood follows a cruel rule. Light does not always heal darkness. And for Nick Reiner, this was only a brief summit before a far greater storm waiting ahead. Being Charlie offered a rare moment of understanding. But understanding is not the same as healing. After the film, Nick Reiner did not step into the stable path many had hoped for. Old fractures, addiction, insecurity, the feeling of abandonment did not disappear simply because they had been spoken aloud. For Nick, seeing himself on screen was both liberating and a confrontation with the rawest truth. As a result, family relationships grew fragile. His parents' concern, though rooted in love, was sometimes felt by Nick as pressure. Protection became control. Help became a reminder that he was still not okay. Those close to him described Nick as deeply sensitive and vulnerable, often swinging between two states, wanting closeness with his family, yet fearing being seen only as someone who needed fixing. The harder he tried to stand on his own, the more he felt himself standing in the immense shadow of his father, an icon he both admired and did not know how to escape. The Reiner family continued to appear in public as a warm, united image. But behind closed doors, conversations grew more difficult. Fewer words, more silence. Nick once said he always felt he arrived too early for others' expectations, yet too late for himself. And when the inner world finds no way out, even the smallest conflict can reach a breaking point. The storm did not arrive with thunder. It came through the accumulation of everything left unsaid. And while everything still hovered between love and exhaustion, the tragedy occurred. On the afternoon of December 14th, the Los Angeles Police Department received an emergency call from the Brentwood area, one of the quietest and most affluent residential neighborhoods in California. When authorities entered the familiar home of the Reiner family, they discovered the bodies of director Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner. There were no red carpet lights, no camera flashes, only the crushing silence of a tragedy that had just occurred. Approximately 6 hours later at 9:15 p.m., Nick Reiner was taken into custody. The Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, confirmed that he was booked on suspicion of murder, describing the case as extremely tragic. Nick was transferred to the Twin Towers Correctional Facility in Los Angeles. Initially, bail was set at $4 million USD. That decision was quickly revoked. As of this moment, the official charges have not yet been announced. The method of the crime has not been disclosed. Nick Reiner remains a suspect and has not been found guilty. Investigators stated that the case file would be forwarded to the district attorney's office, while many critical details remain sealed to protect the ongoing investigation. According to some media sources, Prior to the incident, Nick had reportedly been involved in a conflict with his father at a private gathering. However, police have not confirmed any direct connection between that incident and the case. Hollywood was stunned. The public was shaken. A father who once told some of the most humane stories on screen. A son who once stood beside him in a film about healing. And now both placed at opposite ends of a tragedy without answers. In the first hours following the arrest, Nick Reiner was no longer spoken of as a screenwriter or as the son of a legend. He became the center of a single, overwhelming question, one that even Hollywood is not ready to answer. The truth is still under investigation, and the story has entered a chapter no one ever wished to see. The news spread faster than any film Hollywood had ever produced. An iconic family, a fateful night, and a name thrust into the center of every gaze. The deaths of Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer. Reiner left a profound void across the entertainment world and American political circles. Tributes poured in, honoring artistic legacies, humanistic values, and an influence that extended far beyond the screen. Yet alongside those public remembrances came a heavy silence surrounding the Reiner family itself. For Nick Reiner, the aftermath was not only legal, it was the complete collapse of identity. From someone who once tried to tell his story through art, Nick became the subject of instant judgment. His history of addiction was unearthed. Moments of vulnerability were stripped of context. The media raced ahead, while social media delivered verdicts in place of a courtroom. But amid that storm, one truth remains undeniable. Psychological trauma does not disappear when the lights go out. Family members, friends, and former collaborators chose to step back, not to avoid responsibility, but to wait for the truth to be spoken in the right way. Because in a case like this, every premature word can become a new wound. Hollywood, a place accustomed to comebacks and collapses, now faces a different kind of pain. The pain of helplessness. There is no role to resolve it, no script to rewrite, only unanswered questions hanging in the air about responsibility, mental health care, and the cost of growing up in fame. The scar has been formed, not only on one family, but across an entire industry that is used to telling stories, yet rarely listening all the way through. After the surge of breaking headlines, everything suddenly slowed. No more images, no more statements, only time, the one force that takes no sides. Nick Reiner is currently being held in custody, awaiting the next stages of legal proceedings. In the silence of detention, the Reiner name is no longer a shield, and cinema is no longer an escape. There is only one person left, facing himself, the years behind him, and a future that has yet to be named. Family members, friends, and those who once knew Nick have chosen not to speak publicly. Not as an act of abandonment, but because any words now could tilt the balance of truth. In a case still under investigation, silence becomes a form of responsibility. The public, meanwhile, remains divided. Some wait for answers from the justice system. Others see in this story a warning about mental health, addiction, and children who grow up in fame without a foundation. The question of redemption or silence cannot yet be answered, because redemption takes time, and so does the truth. For now, only one thing is certain. All judgment must wait for the law to speak. Everything beyond that, if anything remains, belongs to another journey, longer and more difficult, one without guiding lights. As the media storm slowly begins to fade, a larger question comes into focus. After everything, what truly remains? For Rob Reiner, his legacy is firmly etched into the history of American cinema. His films about friendship, love, courage, and humanity continue to be watched, quoted, and cherished. Yet the ending of his life forces the public to confront a difficult truth. Even those who tell the most compassionate stories cannot control the tragedies within their own families. For Nick Reiner, legacy does not come in the form of fame or awards. It is an unfinished story, one shaped by addiction, mental health struggles, and the invisible pressure of growing up under an overwhelming shadow. Whatever the final legal truth may be, Nick's life has become a mirror reflecting what Hollywood often avoids: that talent does not heal trauma, that fame cannot replace emotional connection, and that prolonged silence can be more dangerous than any words spoken. This tragedy leaves behind another kind of legacy, quieter but more necessary: dialogue. About how we understand addiction, about how families respond to loved ones who are hurting, and about society's responsibility when the stage lights go dark. Legacy is not only what is celebrated. Sometimes it is the lesson that forces us to listen more carefully, more slowly, and with greater humanity. There are stories that do not end with a period. They end in silence. Nick Reiner's story is not a verdict, at least not until the law speaks. It is a painful reminder that human beings are not defined solely by their origins, their talent, or their fame, but by the wounds they carry throughout their lives. Wounds that are sometimes invisible to everyone else. Hollywood can craft perfect endings on screen, but in real life, not every story is neatly resolved. Some tragedies leave behind only questions about family, about responsibility, and about how we respond to those who are suffering right beside us. Nick Reiner once tried to tell his story through cinema. Now, that story is being told again in a way no one ever wanted. And what remains for us is not judgment, but waiting, listening, and reflection. What do you think was missing in this story? And is fame hiding more pain than we are willing to see? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe the stories behind the spotlight deserve to be told with greater humanity, subscribe to the channel and continue listening with us. Because there are truths that become clearest only after the lights have gone out.